Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Women's Show. And today we want to talk about trade, about what does that mean for women and how can we demystify it to be able to make sense for the people in the East African region, but also the people in Uganda. On 9th October, President William Ruth was quoted to say that it is imperative that we work towards a borderless East African region. It wouldn't make sense that we live within this epoch called the East African community, but still have our borders patrolled. And so if we can have a borderless region, then perhaps the trade that we will talk about today will be something that will be a little bit smoother. We also want to talk about what that means for the women in the region and how they can tap into the benefits and the different, narratives around trade, economy, and money. But to help me have this conversation, I have a panel of 3 ladies who will introduce themselves and then we dive into the conversation. Welcome to the panel.
Thank you.
I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves and what you do, and then we push on into this conversation. I'll begin with you.
Oh, thank you. My name is Nyabuhara Julian. I'm the ED Uganda Women in Trade and Manufacturing. And I'm happy to be here this afternoon.
You're welcome to the show, Julian.
Good afternoon, everyone. Tusiime Vera. I'm a social worker. I'm also a youth volunteer at Reproductive Health Uganda.
Welcome to the show, Vera.
Good afternoon. My name is Ruth Kitmirike, and I'm a citizen of the East African community.
Welcome to the show, Ruth. You've eaten the cake for the day. Because we're talking about things in your region anyway. And to begin us off on that conversation, when we talk about trade, what are the quick or low-hanging fruits that we should be able to harness in the region for us to be able to start having, the trade relations in the region?
Thank you, Tricia. I'll begin like this. One of the very low-hanging fruits that exist for us in the region is we have a benefit of the numbers. When you look at the East African community, we have over 146 million people.
Yeah.
So if anyone is producing and is putting out things to the market that has over 146 million consumers, then I think that is one of the very low-hanging fruits for us. But again, when you look at us as a community, you see that the countries that form the East African community are ranked as some of the most developing countries that we have in the world. Yeah. So us coming together at a time when these countries are heavily developing, both economically, when you look at entrepreneurship of the people, and also the demographics that exist. We have many young people. So the consumer base is a big base, and it's one of the very low-hanging fruits that we have for us as a community.
Yeah, and I love that you say that because sometimes we never understand what the numbers speak.
Yeah.
But I think the more the numbers, the more the trade within the region.
Yes.
But then I would also want to understand in regards to dynamics, and I'll bring you in there, Julian, to help me understand this. We have Rwanda that is a landlocked country. We have Uganda that's a landlocked country. And by all, in the face of it, it almost looks like we benefit most when it comes to the region opening up, because that means then trade becomes way more easier for us as landlocked countries. But what's the dynamic in terms of political will to push, for the region to open up for open markets? And allow me to say this because I know Kenya has the Buy Kenya. Rwanda has, the Alloking the Mnyarwanda campaign, and then Uganda has Bobo. And so in an area where everyone is trying to push for their markets, for people to buy from within the region, how do we benefit from an open trade market, especially the landlocked countries?
Thank you. I think the only way we can benefit from the integration and the community, which is growing every day, because we've been added Congo, we've been added South Sudan.
Yes.
So it's actually now bringing the number to over 500. 500 million people.
Yeah.
So that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. I wish the business community would understand what that means, and especially the young people. I wish the young people would wake up and embrace this opportunity, because that means that everything that is produced in this country can actually be consumed.
Yes.
we may even have a shortage, especially when it comes to agriculture. Uganda being known as an agricultural country, that's the biggest advantage we have in the community. That's something that everybody should embrace. I've talked about it over and over again. We are having youth in misplaced professions.
Yes.
But when actually we should be embracing these opportunities that are coming on board. If we talk of the political will, I think that unless if we want to to go into detail of politics, and I wouldn't want this discussion to go into politics. Let's have this afternoon's discussion entirely on trade, because trade is huge in itself. You cannot talk about trade and finish trade. So by the fact that our leaders have come on board and have tried to get all these countries on board, that means the political will is there. If you listen to the recurrent speeches of the president, he has emphasized the East African integration. It's a song. It's now more than a song. It's almost an anthem. His Excellency has really, really emphasized that we should have one sort of a nation in the East African region. We shouldn't have Uganda, Kenya. We should have one leader. That's what I read in his messages. I do not know whether other people read them the same way. So if we listen to what the current president of Kenya is saying of late, it's music to our ears, especially us who are in trade, us who are in business. It's music to our ears. You can see that the political will is there. Tanzania, of recent, we have had our president meeting their president on several forums, trying to ensure that trade and trying to ensure that the East African community and integration is actually put in place, and it actually bears fruit. So when we talk of the political will, I think the political will is there, but us as citizens, the citizens of East Africa, like she has introduced herself, do we have the will?
That's it.
Do we have the will?
I hear
Or how much are we doing to support our leaders? Because this is a very personal discussion reason. Myself, I did trade in the 3 East African countries. It was actually Kenya, then I would move to Tanzania, then Rwanda, then Uganda, of course. Those were 4 countries.
Yes.
So I know what I'm talking about. This is a very, very close call to me. So I know what I'm talking about. There is huge opportunity in this region, but there are a few things we need to look at. First of all, information. Ugandans lack information. Ugandans lack information. We have got a lot of forums. We have got over 158 radio stations in this country, but we've not dissected this information enough for the people.
And so the East African community stays a blur image for a lot of people. They are like,
I have a feeling it stays the corporate discussion, the political discussion. We are not bringing it to people. For example, to interpret the policies that are put on paper. We are not interpreting the documents that are signed by the presidents. Every time these presidents sit, we hear they are sitting in Kigali over the East African something. They sit in Tanzania over a discussion. But when they come back, who interprets this information for the people to understand that this is actually what our presidents are talking about, and this is where we are moving to. For example, there has been there are 3 things why first of all, the 4 things why the East African Federation was mainly put in place for a common market, for the customs union, for the I think they are around 4. I remember most of them. Then the intent at that time was to ensure we have the same currency. Today, if you move to Nairobi, and I'm saying this with 98% proof, if you move to Nairobi to get exchange of Ugandan shillings, you will not get that money. I want to assure you. If it is sleeping hungry or sleeping on the streets, you'll sleep on the streets with Ugandan shillings, because there is no foreign exchange bureau that will allow Ugandan shillings.
Yeah.
Everybody will tell you, no,
get
nobody
target.
allows that money. Who will take that money?
Who will use it?
Who will use it? No foreign, this Forex Bureau will allow Ugandan shillings. That's how bad it is. That is how bad it is. So when you're trading from Uganda, by the time you cross the border to Kenya, you've already lost money on the border through the exchange.
Yes.
Then there is another issue of the language. You lose money through language, a lot of money through language, because as you cross the border, you don't even know, as they talk about money, you don't even know how much, what they are trying. So what the foreign Forex bureaus will hand you, you do not have enough power to bargain because you do not know, you do not know the language to express yourself.
Yeah.
In Uganda, Ugandans know to bargain a lot. Why? Because when you know the language and you've mastered the language, it's very easy to mention any price, what you're giving to this person, and what they are able to give you. So we lose money through language, we lose money through foreign exchange. That's huge.
Yeah.
So I understand that we've been, they have set a deadline of December 2022 to ensure that the foreign, the common currency is already, but I've not heard anybody talk about it.
Maybe that is a conversation that I've been following. The East African Assembly, the East African Legislative Assembly sat down and started to work, critically on having the common currency happen. What the discussion then misses, and I think that is what you were talking about, is the voice of the people. Is that what would the ideal currency be, and whose currency is going to be taken over the other. But let me bring Vera into this conversation, because that also preempts me on what I wanted to ask around what inflation and COVID then speaks to the region, especially because we are recovering from an economic crisis, and there is inflation from the energy crisis that happened globally, and then we're talking money. We're talking of having one currency. Are we sure that having one currency will deal with the different narratives of money and inflation within the region or within individual countries?
Okay. Having one currency will be good, because having one currency will be more easier to get goods from each and every country. You won't be needing the Forex Bureau. And as you said, you won't be discriminated, or you won't be left out on where to sleep or where to stay. So having one currency is so much better, because if you go to some other countries and you have a different currency, it won't be helpful. It won't be helpful for you to either get anything you want, or even give help to someone. So having one, it's going to be chaos, but it will benefit us.
Because that means then we have to pull back some money from the economy.
Exactly.
So we have to change the currency. Now, and maybe that is also the challenge, because now Uganda, as we start, we don't even have a governor as of sitting. And maybe with that is also another dynamic that I want us to interrogate. We don't have a governor, and if we have a new currency by December 2022, which is quite it's 3 months away from here. So it's quite problematic to think that it will happen on time. But what does that then mean for different economies? I might understand it might, be different for Kenya, whose economy is seemingly trying to thrive. For Tanzania, who on the mellow, they stand between ECOWAS and here, so they are always on the move. But for us as Uganda, when we speak currency and money, either it's going to be a boost for us or a total overhaul of the money economy. So what that dynamic, especially for Kenya that is cashless, and Uganda that is still dealing with paper money, a lot of paper money. How do we interrogate, that narrative there?
That becomes a little complicated, as many people have mentioned, because yes, we have an economy in Uganda and it's running, but the organization thereof is a little tricky. Now that we do not even have a governor of our bank, So you find that some of those policies may not be able to take effect as of December 2022. Because next week we are going to start November and December is just close to a month away. And if people are already struggling and crying with the current situation of the economy. And if you are telling people that in this situation, we are just recovering from COVID, fuel prices everywhere, in every part of the region, actually very high. We still have Congo and South Sudan who are still struggling politically, and that has a great toll on the economic situation in those countries. So it gets a little tricky for us to simply bump into a common currency as a region. But again, socially, allow me just to draw it on this other end. You find that Africans are not divorced from the system in which we operate. And that the same thing applies even to the East African community. Recently on Independence Day, I was wondering, why isn't this integration happening? Because the representative from Rwanda is saying, yes, integration. President Ruth is saying, we want integration. The president of Uganda is saying, yes, integration. I'm like, you people are saying it. Why isn't it happening? Why isn't it taking shape? So I think it gets back to the egos that exist within people. The Kenyan man is going to come and say, my currency is already strong, so if all of us are adopting, so
and then the system won't be disrupted.
It won't be disrupted, and we shall have a person in Tanzania or maybe Uganda, let's say Uganda, who will have to struggle so much. So I think we need this, yes, but there must be serious organization on how we have the common currency integrated structurally in our...
A smooth transition.
Yeah, a smooth transition, because if we just bump into it, we're going to crash land.
I hear you. And Julian, maybe also...
well, according to I think most of you could be young. There is a time when we had from the money we used to have, and it was changed to... I was also, I think, young, but I could understand that money was changed. So, and I remember our parents rushing to change that money. And if someone went with $1 million, they would almost come back with 10,000.
Wow.
So that's the impact when we talk of money. That's what people are scared of. Because someone is imagining that if I'm holding my 100 million on the bank account, let's say if it's changed to another currency, the currency could be a very big currency, a very heavy currency. So that means it will bring you 100 million, let's say 100,000.
Can you imagine?
And when someone hears that they are 100,000, they feel like they've been cheated, they've lost. But then we need to, it's about information. It's about information. And then every change comes with resistance. I remember I was young, but I remember how our parents really resisted. But then with time, there are even people who kept their millions of money in boxes and under the beds, because at that time the banks were very few. I think we had around 2 banks in the country. It was Uganda Cooperative Bank and Uganda Commercial Bank. So and all the money had to be taken to Uganda Commercial Bank to be exchanged,
to be bought back.
Then they give you the new currency. So, and most people resisted and kept the money, probably because of transport. At that time, most roads were not made, so transport was not that easy. So most of the people resisted and said, let me keep my money until, and most of the money was either because it was given deadlines on when that money would be accepted by Bank of Uganda. So what I'm trying to say is that most of these changes, when they come, there will be a huge population that will resist them. But then we need to look at the 20 years from now, 50 years from now, and what we are trying to do for the future, for the young people now who are growing up. Maybe some of us may not live to see some of these changes, but then there are those who will live to see these changes. And as a nation and as a federation, we need to plan for the next 100 years. So, and about the currency, if you notice now, Congo uses dollars, US dollars. Rwanda, most of the francs. The trade currency, most of the, they use francs, but they are most on dollars. Most of their trade currency is dollars. And Burundi uses dollars. Their biggest currency is dollars. South Sudan uses
Dollars.
US
The Sudan
dollars.
dollar.
So you can see that it's a small portion that is actually remaining. We could all agree and say, let's use US dollars.
Yeah.
Why not? Because it's what people already are using in the trade.
Yeah.
Still, every Ugandan who crosses to Kenya, somehow, money must go through dollars.
Yeah.
And the reason why I think most people, the reason why I encourage the common currency is when you're here and you have beans, you need to supply them to Tanzania.
Yes.
So long as you get a contact in Tanzania, you just tell them the price and they
And then they can
understand
sell.
and they know
Yes.
that here I'll make a profit or a loss.
Yes.
But now, every time you have someone you're
You have to
trading with in
convert back
Tanzania,
into
you
your
have to first
country.
convert into
to dollars,
dollars,
and
To see
then
if you're being
then
cheated.
ask or Google what's the Tanzanian
Tanzania.
rate,
Yeah.
and maybe the Google rate is not the actual
The
rate
actual
of the
rate
rate
on
in
ground.
the
I
market.
hear you.
You see how we are going through a very difficult, and then
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you put in transport, you do not know how much the transport guy is going
Yeah.
to ask you,
Yeah.
you do not know the insurance. So through the whole process, by the time
Even
you
better.
finish the conversation on the phone, you're already so tired that you feel this.
You even feel cheated before you know they're
Exactly.
cheating
So
you
you
or
feel
not.
this transaction
Yes.
will not be successful
Yeah.
before you even finish the conversation. So you see how it impacts on the whole trade
Yeah.
compound
Dynamic.
dynamic. So what we are saying is that for the smooth running of this, let's start with basics. And what are the basics? Language, currency. Those two.
Yeah.
There is no other way. And if our leaders cannot understand that, there is no way the East African Federation is going to be favorable to the trade community. Those two are the basic. A friend in Kenya was asking me, Ugandans are known to be very shrewd. How come they don't come to this country to trade? Because first of all, the issue is language.
Language.
Secondly, when they change the money and they realize,
That's little.
I'm not
Omanyi,
making the
that is
money.
why you see, we find Ugandans very comfortable to trade in South Sudan
Yes.
and Rwanda.
Yes.
Why? Because there is a US dollar.
They see the value for the
The
money.
US dollar has a lot of value, and it makes sense because as soon as they make a call in Rwanda, they tell them the price in the US dollars, then they know, oh, here I make money.
Yeah.
I
So
hear you.
the conversation is as clean as that, and it's as so. I do not know whether the people who are thinking and planning for this country is because they are not in the actual system of trade.
Yeah.
They've not experienced what traders go through. They have not lived what trade is on the East African market. They do not know what it means to cross 5 borders while trading through these
Then
countries.
you have to change the forex at every other stop.
My
And
story
the taxes
is I would
also.
move goods from Uganda,
Go to Kenya.
or at times I would buy them from Dar es Salaam because I would get them cheaply from Dar es Salaam because of the port.
Yeah.
I would bring them, cross, go to Rwanda. How many borders have I crossed? Then from Rwanda, I supply to Rwanda. From Rwanda, I have to come back to Uganda. Then wait for my money to be brought here. So through all these borders, money is being exchanged.
Yeah.
And by the time you get here, it's not that you've not made profit, but you've lost all the profit in the exchange rate.
Exchange rate.
So that's the whole conversation about trade in the East African region. It's as simple as that. But the people who are making decisions for us have not gone through this whole process to understand it.
Perhaps
People
they've
have
never
been
even
sitting
traded
in
on that
offices
level,
yeah.
for the past, as long as we know the East African Federation, but they've not lived it. So they do not know. That's why we need to bring on board, for example, like women in cross-border trade. When I'm having a conversation with women in cross-border trade, then I know I'm having a conversation with the right people.
Yes.
Because these people understand the dynamics of trade. They understand what, but do even our political leaders consult these people? That's one conversation we need to have.
And maybe to bring Vera in on the dynamics of, you know, conversations on cross-border trade, the group of people that also really, you know, stagger in this conversation are people that are not in the money economy. I mean, I'm talking about the everyday service people, the traders of every day. And I once hosted a team of hawkers. There were hawkers, you know, everyday hawkers. And they're like, the truth is this is the dynamic. You would think I hawk these things, and you don't question who gives me these things. And so there is a person in a chiduka somewhere seated who is going to give me these things. I come, I hawk. If they chase me off the street, that person doesn't get money because very few people go downtown to support them. And there is a syndicate of money that is in the informal sector that we've not known how to tap into. Apart from Museveni telling them enter the money economy.
Yeah.
But how do we help that, everyday woman who has a small business of 120 or 200K, benefit from such a region?
We can help them in we can set up a place, an area for them, like the way like KCCA wanted to set up areas for hawkers to trade in. But also even that is tricky because you don't know what people want. So you have to first ask them what do you want, what works for you. You don't just come up with a policy and just put it there. People won't follow it. So if you come up with a policy, consult them. And if they accept that we want this, we want a market, this is like exact position, this is where our market will come from.
You picked my brain on having regional markets. I dream of a day where I can get my dresses. I imagine by then we are now putting on Ugandan cotton from ITL. And then I go to Kenya in the Mombasa area, and then we are having a regional market, and then there is Kenyan. There are Ugandan products, there are Kenyan products, there are Rwandese products. It would be ideal to see such a thing.
I think to add on what you're saying, there is a time in the past, I think 3 months or 6, around COVID time, they are working on developing border markets. They actually, I think they've started with Busia or Malaba. I'm not so certain. Busia, where they've put up a huge market for Ugandan and Kenyan products, and everybody can come and do, the trading there. Especially agro. Their focus for now is on agro products. So I think that's a very huge opportunity. Except, like I've said, we need to trickle information down to people. How do we get people in Kampala who are stranded with these products to get to these markets and trade? For example, there is what we call a simplified trade regime. A simplified trade regime is something that I thought by now every Ugandan should be able to know and use, because it is whereby every Ugandan or Kenyan or Tanzanian can trade goods worth 2,000 to another country, one of these countries, without paying taxes.
Is it a language issue? Because our documents are in English, and we are dealing with people in the region that have a diverse of language. I mean, we have Chinyarwanda somewhere, we have Losoga somewhere, we have Lunyore somewhere. Is it a language issue or a digestion of this information? Because if you helped me understand it on a level that makes sense to me, maybe I would be able to use this information for my benefit.
When you look at some of these policies, and if Ugandans, for example, on the streets here, the way Ugandans are well known for hustling their way up. If they got this information about language, I think by 2-3 months, they're already conversant with the language. But are they aware that they can take their goods worth $2,000 to Kenya or to Tanzania untaxed? Are they aware of that information?
I don't think they are.
So long as you get proof that these goods are Ugandan made, or they are originating from, you get what they call a certificate of origin from Uganda Export Promotion Board. That's where they issue them from. And you're able, so as long as you have that certificate, you can cross these goods.
So that means that's Goodwill Tiles. Goodwill Tiles says I make these tiles in Uganda. And this is a certificate. I can take my tiles across Kenya.
Except that for them, with Goodwill, they would be sending them in huge quantities. But here they are talking of, I think this one was trying to cater for people, women on cross-border trade. People who are doing cross-border trade. That's how this actually came in after a certain business meeting in Rwanda. I think that was around 2005 or 2010. And that's when some of these policies were brought up. to help facilitate these
The
people who
small
are
business.
small,
businesses.
because we
Small,
had an
medium
issue of
enterprises.
you're asking us a lot of taxes
Oh,
at
yeah.
the border when we are crossing with one bag of sugar. I'm crossing with one sack of tomatoes.
Yeah.
I have only 100 pineapples, but you're asking me a lot of taxes. So the customs union came around, sat down and said, okay, how do we do this?
Yeah.
So that's when they put up that simplified trade regime.
Yeah.
Whereby you can cross borders below $2,000, and that's big business for small scale.
Yeah.
For small
It is
scale, that's
big
big
business.
business.
I think even just from this conversation, when you
Yeah.
go back and get these documents, you disseminate to the many groups that you're in.
Yes.
Because that begins a conversation.
Yes.
And I know there are a lot of Ugandans who necessarily do not have grand businesses. Some are even online businesses they do in their homes. And if they were privy to such information, it opens up a whole bigger market and helps them understand that actually there is an open market that you can tap into. Just as of now. But let me bring you Ruth in. When she speaks about, the regime for small, it boomed in my head that we also have online businesses. And they've become way grand. I have ordered myself shoes from Kenya and they got here. I don't know if it was expensive because still the money is, the politics of money is still there. But I know that there are good quality things that I can get from across the border that I might not necessarily easily find on our market. And that kind of dynamic, when you think about the online space, how do we regulate it to be able to know that we can actually benefit in terms of income, in terms of taxes, but also in broadening the spectrum of who can then trade? Can my small thrift shop thrive in such a dynamic? Can I get my clothes that I got from Chikobo, clean them up, put them online, and then send them off to Kenya without any squimmer, without struggling?
I think the conversation on online is a very important one for us to have here today. Because one, when you look at the majority of traders, majority of the businesses that are going online these days, these are usually businesses owned by young people.
Yes.
Because we saw what COVID did. Not many young people are still able to hire a space for a shop, get this license and get all these things. So their survival is online. And when you look at the East African community, we have 77%, more than 77% of our population as young people. And I was recently looking at some of the policies that are in place by the ESC. And there is also a youth policy. When you look at the East African Free Continental Trade Area, it is looking at promoting trade by young people. It has those interest groups, and young people are one of the groups that they cater for. So I think it gets now important for us to make sure that we promote internet trade, that we remove some of these barriers when it comes to internet. But also now that we are moving into a customs union and having the free travel from one place to another for as long as you don't need a visa to go to Rwanda, you don't need a visa to go to Sudan. So if we can have that fostered properly, but again, most importantly, how people can freely engage online, because if we are having a region of more than 77% as young people, promoting online trade is one of the ways through which we can empower young people in the region.
Maybe let me now then talk about the fact that we are an agricultural-based economy. And a lot of, I don't remember the time, but there was a documentary that I saw, and there was a lot of bananas going out of Kampala. And the conversation we were having was the fact that whatever is left actually can make money if we start to think about it. It's like now that we've given away the food, can we use whatever is left, make either paper or recycle the stems, the leaves? How do we make money off of these things? And that is where I come. In an economy like ours that is just at the start of its industrial, epoch or industrial revolution. We are just getting there. How do we, without going taking ourselves into hunger? How do we, in regulating what goes out,
Yeah.
how do we make sure that we are living survival,
Means
survival means for
something
our
for
people,
us.
something that will sustain us long after we've sold all our bananas.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can us as Ugandans, as a producer, then you also you look what Ugandans consume best. So if you're going to plant something or do agriculture, look at what Ugandans eat, what they like. Okay, it's fine, we can export things outside, but still, if
I think
we
that's tricky. And hear me out. I think that's tricky because there was a time Ugandans, planted coffee, and really the market for coffee was there.
Yeah.
And then there was a time we planted vanilla, and the market for vanilla wasn't there. We don't really consume like vanilla on large scales. But then also now people are getting food production, the regular food production, and doing it for export. And I'm sorry to have that because it's also a place of privilege for people that have
the machinery,
the big land to be able to produce grand scale, lorries of food that goes out. But I've seen that we also now are having hunger issues. How do we regulate such a space? Is it possible that it can be an act of government or an act of the region that 30% can go, 70 remains home? Can we, what does that dynamic look for us so that we don't die of hunger, so that we have, for home consumption, food consumption within the region as well?
As a country, Uganda or the government, they can put up a policy. Even if you're a large scale farmer or a small scale farmer, and be like 30% do it for trading, then remain with your 70% food in order for you people to survive as a region. But if people people want money, but if we keep on selling food and food, nothing will come out of it because we will eat all the money and we'll be left in hunger.
You see, Patricia, again, that reminds me of what is happening in Busoga.
Yeah.
All the land that people have has now been channeled to sugarcane growing. That they have not even left any land for, say, for matoke, for maize. All the money, all the land they have, it is. You find that someone has used up all their land for growing sugar canes, and they are starving in their home because you cannot eat the sugar canes because they're meant to get you the money. But again, it gets back to how the government cares for the Mutua Wansi. Because coming up with a policy of saying for you to be a commercial farmer, this is the criteria you're going to meet, that restricts who then becomes a commercial farmer in this region and who will be the beneficiary from this economic integration that could come up. But again, one of the other things that we could do is trying to see that we have effective policies, effective enough not to discriminate against people on the basis of their economic standing, but again, not to leave our own people in abject poverty and starvation.
I hear you when you say that, because I think President Museveni has once said to leave, I don't know if it was coffee or sugarcane plantation to people that have large scale land areas. And rightly so, because the idea is if really you can't grow on a large scale and you're only going to get perhaps 20,000 or 30,000 off the small plots, you might as well grow home food for consumption so you don't die. So you have a sustainability outside the cash. And regardless, a cash is good, but you can't, grow on a grand scale. But let me bring Julian in here because you're in that industry. And the politics around money and production. When we talk about women in the informal sector and joining the money economy, that is a narrative that we've had. But how do we leverage them to be able to harvest returns within the region without necessarily giving up their businesses? And hear me out, because I know there are a lot of women that do not have $2,000 businesses. But would love to benefit from such a dynamic. How do we leverage their, capability to be able to navigate the region, navigate the borders, and make money?
Oh, thank you for that question. That's a little bit complicated question. But to take us back briefly, like that question actually brings me back to answer what you are asking.
Yeah.
Online trading.
Oh, yeah.
Online trading is something that can be done by everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
All we need are policies to protect people's money. The other day I was ordering a machine from one of these shops here that sell machines.
Yeah.
And someone told me, no, you can order that on Alibaba.
Oh,
And
wow.
we shall get it for you in 1 month.
Yeah.
So if I can order for a machine from China through Alibaba, why can't I order goods from Kenya and they're
Kenya.
here?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, most people now, especially these who are trading in huge
Huge amounts.
Quantities. Yes.
machines, let's say big things, if you
Yeah.
want big quantities,
Yeah.
Alibaba is the cheapest and safest way to have the things here.
Yeah.
So I think we are trying to limit ourselves.
Yes,
And
we
I
are.
do not like this narrative that for us Ugandans, no. If Kenya has migrated into a cashless economy, we can do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
And we've
strictly saying,
begun.
it
Yeah.
is strictly saying I cannot transact in cash.
Yes.
If all my clients came to my shop, I just have to say no. If you
Send
want to
on
transact,
mobile
send to
money.
Momo
Yeah.
or send
Yeah.
to AirPay,
Yeah.
something like that. And before you know it, someone knows that if I actually transact through Momo Cash, I don't even have to incur any
It's
any
easier.
costs.
Yes.
So we just have to integrate, as we are integrating politically, let's integrate economically.
And I actually know people that have gone cashless,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
in Uganda.
Let's integrate digitally and ensure that all transactions are digital.
Yeah.
As simple as that. And then for women, we are normally the last people to take up things. Any developments, we are very skeptical. We think twice, will my money be safe? Will they deliver the best product that I want?
Yes.
You think twice, you're like, if I give them my money, if they bring a damaged product, how will I take it back? So I think it is it's a change of mentality. And then we agree that we are not going to transact with cash. What is the impact of transacting with cash? For example, today, if you're sending someone 5 million today, do you know how much they deduct from that 5 million?
Yes.
5 million, the charge they charge you is also amount worth to another product of itself.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you look at it and say, is it worth it? So as business women, our organization is mainly leading women who are into the cottage industry. Women who are trying to develop different products from their kitchens, from their garages. And this came about because of COVID, most women losing their jobs, most women closing their shops. So as they sat home, like mothers, you're already thinking. So most of them started doing these small cottage industries, making soap, making lotions, making
Little daycares as well.
small industries in homes. And it's surprising the revolutionary industry that is growing out of this. It is surprising. So I'm trying to think, how do we integrate with these women in the region who are doing the same things?
Oh, yeah. That
If
would be
you read
interesting.
vastly, you will find, even on Twitter, social networks, you'll find the same groups there doing the same things.
Yes.
So how do we work together to ensure that we have our products? For example, most of you, if you are not aware, hibiscus is in very high demand in
It
Kenya.
is.
And they ask for hibiscus a lot. They use a lot of hibiscus in Kenya. But unfortunately, it's not grown in Kenya.
Interesting.
So now they are saying, how do we get Ugandan hibiscus into the Kenyan market?
Kenyan market.
So women here are not aware that actually, as they are seated on their hibiscus and it doesn't have
There is
market,
someone who needs
there is
it.
someone
Someone
who
who needs
desperately needs
Needs
what?
it. Hibiscus.
Shea butter. Most
Yeah.
of you have heard about shea butter. Shea butter is only grown in the north, in northern Uganda, and in West Africa. Those are the only places that grow shea butter. And shea butter, works on skins. It can be eaten. It can work as ghee. It works on skins. It can work on hair. So it's on very high demand. Even in Europe, it's a very, very lucrative product. So we are trying to say, okay, how do we package these products for women's products to enter into these markets? But at the end of the day, This whole conversation is going back to information.
Information.
Exactly.
I was going to ask you that. How is it then the mandate of government to provide, information on where the markets are and access to these markets? Because if a government is interested in its people and there is gaps in delivery that Uganda could benefit from, isn't it somewhere government then can step in and help people access these markets?
Like someone who has been in this field for some time, I want to assure you that government is slow.
Oh yeah, true.
And you will not rely on government to do most of the things.
Yeah.
Today, if you walked in Uganda Export Promotions Board and you asked them that we have these kinds of products, how do we ensure that they access, for example, the UEA, the Middle East market? How do we ensure that our products get there? For you to get a response, you may never get that response.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because I've walked there and I know what it means. They may never respond. So what we are trying to, I think we've reached a time, like they say, for us people who are in the business community, government is too slow for us. How do we ensure that we look for information? Information is everywhere. Information is on the internet. Information is, so long as we read, and even you, the media houses, try to digest, to dissect this information for people who are listening to us, who probably didn't even know that you can go to Google and find out this information. You can go to Google and find out which product that I grow. Let's say if I grow shea, if
there's a shea butter trader that now knows
that
there
is
is market
in this
for
area or in Europe, they want this product. For example, if I want okra. Okra is on very high demand in West Africa because almost everybody uses okra there. It's a daily meal. So how do we ensure that we encourage our women from growing peas that do not have high demand? They could grow okra, which takes only 1 month to grow and 2 months to grow, and it's exported to West Africa. So information. We people who are in civil society, you people who are in civil society and who are in media need to start getting out of politics
and put out information
and put out this trade information out to the right people, to the Muntu Wawansi. We cannot keep complaining about government not helping Muntu Wawansi. Government has done enough. They've tried to look out for information. They've tried to sign documents, but documents are seated on people's desks and cabins, and nothing is being done.
Dust.
But then, how about you people? How do you get out this information from getting dust to dissecting it to the people?
Usable information.
Usable information. For example, getting down to a woman in Chukuwa and telling her, this money you're using to import products from China, you could actually start a full-fledged industry in Uganda and produce mattresses and produce cloth, textiles.
And I think the pandemic really did hit, because there was a time I worked downtown, and the point where we went to get things was China. And with the lockdown, a lot of diversion went to Dubai. But it's still outside the region. And that is where we're getting the products from out. But how do we, I don't know how we're going to do it, because then the dynamic is that investors really gain before we even do within the region. How do we put a tax cap or a trade cap on international imports? Let me say, like China, how do we have a cap on what can come in from China for consumption here home? Even for the region itself, how much do we consume that is not from the East African region that we can cap on? Maybe Ruth, you can come in there.
That is tricky. And why I really think that is tricky, it gets back to our bargaining power. As a region, as a country, if it's at country level, when you look at the product, someone will tell you buying a cloth made in Uganda is more expensive than me buying a cloth from China. Leather made in Uganda is more expensive than a leather shoe from China. So I think it gets back to the taxes that are on our locally made products. Can we have locally made products easily accessible for people? Can we have the price of manufacturing, the manufacturing costs of things here in our country.
Mm-hmm.
Because we find that even our local investors are crying. They'll tell you government is not willing to give us tax waivers, and yet they're very open to giving an Indian man, a Chinese man a tax waiver. So when products go out to the market, the Chinese man will have cheaper products because they did not incur heavily in the cost of production as compared to the Ugandan woman. So I think for us to get to a level where we can have a tax cap, where we can say this is the maximum of Chinese products we can receive, I think it begins with our internal economic policies and how favorable they are for our local investors.
So maybe if we were a bloc, and that is where I'm coming from. If we were a bloc, even on the global market, do we have a better bargaining point?
Yes.
Point?
I think if we are block on a global market, we would have, because when you look at the vision of the economic integration at the East African level, they're looking at things such as turning the East African community into a stable, a competitive, and sustainable lower middle income region. That is Vision 2026 as per the East African community.
That's a few years from
a few years from now. So I think if we're a bloc, when we're a bloc, first of all, we have better bargaining power, because if you're not accessing the market in Tanzania, the market in Sudan, the market in Congo, the market in Uganda, because you're not meeting a certain criterion, I think that puts us in a better position. Yes, but again, put together as a bloc, make conditions favorable for the locals.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I want to agree with you that a bloc would work for us. If you look at what the African Continental Free Trade Area is trying to do for us, we are now looking at a population of 1.4 billion people.
Quite big.
It's going to be big.
And almost 60% of that population, or 70%, is youth.
Yes, that's true.
And youth, when it comes to consumption, then you are assured of markets. Because youth will consume everything. They will consume food.
And we do.
We are taken up by
They will consume food, they will consume furniture, they will consume cosmetics. So everything produced can be consumed. 2 weeks ago, President Ruth, there had been tea that was stuck since COVID, because Europe was no longer taking tea. And tea, and Europe is the biggest consumer of Kenyan Ugandan tea. So it had been stuck since COVID time, because they were not shipping tea to Europe. So because of the African Continental Free Trade Area, most of these containers were taken to Ghana.
Oh, wow.
Whoever thought that Ghana would be consuming our Eastern products?
With their cocoa.
And you know, for example, they send us cocoa, we send them tea. That's beautiful. So that's what we should be looking at. Let's look at Uganda. Uganda, what are we known for? Either milk, a lot of milk.
Eggs.
If you listen to what the eggs, though you heard what the Minister of Trade in Kenya was talking about.
But I love that narrative. But the hens are yours.
Yes, so if you're saying you're refusing to accept our eggs, but we are importing over 1 million one-day chicks to Uganda from either through Ken Grow or from these Ken companies that we hear around, and we are taking your chicken, your chicks. So I mean, we are doing a trade together. We are actually doing bigger favor than but you're not understanding. Yes. So the president was trying to explain to them about dairy, that our milk, Uganda is able to produce the cheapest milk on the African continent. You know why? Because Uganda, we are able to rear our cows at the cheapest cost. Because our cows
they normally graze.
Free range. And then these other countries do not have that privilege. Because for them, because of limited land, they have to rear their cows zero grazing, which is very expensive to maintain a cow on a zero grazing range. So that means our milk ends up being very cheap on the African continent. So he was trying to explain to Kenyans, why don't we get cheap milk and add value and sell it to the other markets? But then how is our Muntu wa Wansi,
going to
both the
benefit
East African citizen, me and you, able to understand this narrative and know that if I can get cheap milk, repackage it, and probably send it either back even to Uganda, and we are able to buy it as powdered milk. We are the same people who are going to buy it.
Exactly.
Or send it to Ghana, or send it to Nigeria, because Nigeria
within the African trade community.
has the biggest market so far, the consumer market. They take a lot of food and they produce not so much. By the way, they don't produce that much because most of their population went into oil. They grew up. They all grew up knowing that
oil
was something that was going to bring either jobs, food, and everything. So there is no a lot of agriculture in West Africa. So I think let's take advantage of which country produces what,
and leverage on
that. If there is one country that is very good at let's say milk dairy, let's specialize on that.
And send that into the region.
Yes. If
and
we
then
know
if
that
Kenya has tea, send it into the region.
Let the textiles, we know Nigeria is very good with textiles. Let them send us the textiles. We shall be very proud to put them on and use them.
And we do put them on,
and we put them on. So let's leverage on that. We send them food, they give us textiles. Because, for example, Uganda may not produce enough cotton to produce the textiles that the country needs. So how do we leverage on the African? Let the people who are in these organizations look at these details on how to say, okay, let's allow Ugandans to send us matoke. That's called plantain in West Africa. They take it as plantain. So how do we send a lot of our plantain to West Africa or to Congo? Because Congo normally, for them, what they eat is bananas, the sweet banana, the gonja. How do we grow a lot of gonja and send it to Congo? Because Congolese people don't dig. There are very few people who dig in Congo. They depend on eggs and plantain and fish. That's their food. In fact, to know that they eat fish, they finish. When they eat eggs, they don't leave anything.
Everything goes.
They eat everything. So that's a huge market that we need to tap into as Ugandans. Instead of us making noise that Kenya is not accepting our eggs, okay, let's channel it to
DRC.
Congo.
Yes, because they have a
how are people in government trying to bring this information to us? It all comes back to information. And then the other issue is security. The reason why people are not trading so much with some of these countries that have gotten on board with the East African community. Security.
Yes.
You cannot see when people are running out of through Ghana every day, and you say you send your trucks.
That's a question that I wanted us to interrogate, and maybe all of us can chip in. When we have DRC Congo at the heart of crisis on a daily basis, they're always in war. And then you have Sudan. Always on war. I mean, they've not settled down, even in the seemingly post-war era. It's still turbulent. So you have these contentious areas within the region. And yet they're big markets, because I know the Congo timber has been stolen in and out. Even for those that have traded in it. There are some that have traded in it. But with such a region as rich as Congo, and a market that we can equally also tap in, but also, dealt with the kind of insecurity, how do we start to have conversation around, trade in that region? And then you also have, the fights that happen within the region when you have Rwanda and Uganda in an interface. They will not talk to each other for years. And then you have trade, because I have ever traded with Rwandese women who come and buy clothing and then they take it back to sell. I mean, they come, we are a cheap economy, so they come, they buy from here and then take to Rwanda and sell at a good price wherever. I don't know how much they get anyway, but they would really buy it cheap here. So when you have such a narrative, how do you trade with the region? Let me begin with you, Ruth.
Okay. First of all, when you look at what the plan of the East African community is, two things they are really putting at the forefront for this 5-year period. And one of that is regional peace and security, as well as infrastructure development. When you look at most of the products that come out of Uganda, most of those products would have a very high market in Sudan and in Congo. in Congo, I have friends who trade from Congo, and they will tell you one of the biggest problems they face is you're going to spend a lot of money on transportation. Transportation,
They
because
don't have roads.
the roads are bad, they're actually non-existent. And in the middle of that forest, you are not sure of your security.
You might find robbers.
You might find robbers and you know,
even rebels.
yes. So it gets difficult. I think before we go to any other thing, I think it is very important that we have that peace and security issue sorted, as well as the infrastructure development in the region. Because if that is not happening, we are missing out a lot on what the market in Congo would have for us as a country, even us as a region. But also, I think it a little gets back into the political will and the political willingness to have this actually. If we still have people, say in Congo, who think Ugandans just want to steal their things, Ugandans just interested in stealing their things, I think our economic integration is somehow dependent on the political relations that exist within the atmosphere. Because if we come together as a community, why would we have Congolese being comfortable importing things from France, from Belgium? And yet you can have these things from this region. So if we are having some of these countries get on board as part of regional members, I think as a region together, we must sit and agree on the way forward for peace and security and infrastructure development without making it look like we actually coming to steal your things.
Indeed. Let's talk roads. How important is it, especially for Congo that has now joined, it's the youngest, it's the 7th country in the East African community. When we had that conversation around Uganda doing a Uganda-Congo road, everyone was crazy mad. It's like, back home, the potholes are killing us. How important is it, especially if Uganda is trying to tap into the market in Congo? How important are the roads?
The roads are so important. It will be easy for us to transport our goods from Uganda to Congo, and it will be so fast. Because without a road, you won't have any market. And some goods are perishable, they would get spoiled. So roads are so important. Easy trade will be there, easy communication. You'd be able to go to the market and purchase something from Uganda to Congo.
And finally, insecurity, before we take a break. When we speak insecurity, I shudder. I pray for people of Congo because these narratives don't sound normal for us. But right now, they are now entering the Nachi Valley refugee camp. And that's their reality for quite some time. Is there a semblance of peace that we can buy in Congo for us to be able to trade, even for our women here? Most importantly, for the women. Because when we look at the rape cases, when we look at, the highway rebels, I don't even know if they're highway, forest rebels. What low-hanging or what quick wins can we have within Congo for us to really start trading, even if it's just on the border areas?
Well, I have interacted with very many women who are doing. Of course, women will always find their way out. By the way, even in the most difficult situations, women will find their way. And we've had a lot of women. That's why I feel sad when I see a lot of rebels going through Nagana. There's been huge thriving business for women from Kisoro. By the way, that's their biggest way of earning. Apart from growing Irish, those who cannot be able to cross. The second earning channel for women and men in Kisoro is through the border, Bunagana.
So we're going to take a break and then quickly change and then come back and pick up on that point. Don't forget that point of the women in Kisoro. Let's be back. Don't forget to subscribe to Civic Space TV, like, share, and continue these conversations in your communities because they're helpful. At least I learned 1 or 2 new things today. Julian, let me pick you back on your brain when it comes to trade, especially women finding their way. We're talking about the women in Chisoro.
Yes, women in Tsoro, most of them are located on the borders with Congo. And there is, apart from growing Irish, apart from farming, the main other activity that they do is trade. And through these borders, through the Congo, they have a lot of borders on the, on the Congo. So most of them, the women have thrived. They either sell jewelry, they sell vitenge, textiles, they sell food, they take food, and then the women, they are able to bring these products from Congo. So it's huge business. That's why I feel very saddened when I see these refugees. Every time there is an influx of refugees, of course, borders are crossed. Then they fear the rebels who are coming in. Of course, trade stops. So when it brings us to this brings us to the main reason why we are actually here. What would be the benefits in the real sense? Let's say all circumstances.
Other factors held constant.
Held constant. Peace is prevailing. Infrastructure is good. What would be the main advantages of us penetrating these markets, these new markets? Of course, we wouldn't have issues with people complaining about food being sold cheaply. All Irish would be going to Congo and sold at a very good price. Sorghum would be going to Congo and sold at a very good price. And as well as all these products on cross-border districts. Because Uganda is almost all bordered with
different
all through. It's on it has cross-border districts. So we are saying that would have new markets, would have people creating new businesses in these other countries, would leverage on the new populations which are outside these countries, and then would have infrastructure development. Because as every time we have a lot of, that's why you see roads to Rwanda are very good. Because there was a lot of huge business going on. So government saw it. They look at how much they are earning from the taxes every day, and they say, we think we need these roads open. And I think that's what was forcing the president to think of opening roads in Congo. I was actually among the people who first thought, this is crazy. What is going on? What is going on? But then later I realized that as a country, we need a lot of money to build our own inner roads. How are we going to get this money? It is through taxes. Where are we going to make sure that we get taxes from? Through trade. So how are we going to open opportunities in countries that still have opportunities of trade? So I think his thinking was very right. I now support him 100%. But now the problem is that we are having an issue of insecurity. There is no way we can, there is no person or there is no country that is, World Bank will not allow to take its money on people who are going to construct these roads when they are sure that these people are not going to come back alive.
True.
So that means that's a closed chapter for now. But then it's impacting on our country in one way or another. So how do we ensure that we work with women who are living on borders to ensure that we promote them, we support them,
and they can thrive
in trade, and even in adding value on some of these products, and they send them because we are looking at starting a revolution of women industrialists.
Well, that would be a good revolution. I want to be part of that revolution.
You should come on board. So trying to ensure that women come from these small cottage industries and grow into big industries. We only have around 5 women industrialists in this country. That's sad.
I know, that's sad.
After 60 years of independence, only 5 women or 6, not more than that, who are running proper industries in this country.
And don't add the Molwana daughters, because that was a male enterprise.
Probably now, because it's being managed entirely by ladies, by the mom and the daughter, so we regard it as a women's enterprise.
Okay, now.
So, but we need to ensure that the youth grow with. The other day I was asking on Twitter whether we are going to have a generation of women, of industrialists. Generally, because every youth is on TikTok. So I'm not seeing anybody being productive. So I was asking one of my daughters that I want to see you do a TikTok video when you're trying to do something
Make
productive.
liquid soap.
When you're making
Teach someone how
you
to
know,
make liquid soap.
yes,
That would be interesting.
that would be interesting. I would want to see followers following you for
Yeah.
that, not dancing, because everybody in the world is dancing. Who is doing something different? So that's one gospel that we should put out, and trade should be the song, because the only way to get us better, the only way to create jobs, the only way to promote education, the only way to promote services in this country is to support trade.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Ladies, as we wind down this conversation, in one or two words, what would be your scenario if we are building scenarios? Because that's a very good point to end on. If we're building scenarios for the future, especially when it comes to the East African region, what would be the hang? And this is why I'm coming. We are working on language. We are almost there.
Yeah.
We are working on currency. We don't know how it will phase out, but it's on board.
Common market.
We have a common market. We already have the East African passports. I can walk into Rwanda on my national ID, and I won't struggle.
Even the permits.
Even the permits. Oh, the driver's license.
Yeah.
That will be interesting.
Yeah.
And so we have the East African Military Task Force. And seemingly as a region, there is progress. Seemingly.
Political will is there.
Political will is there. People are really talking about the East African. Actually, it's now at the forefront of a lot of the conversations, the East African community. What different thing would you want going forward?
Going forward, firstly, how they cater for the people at the grassroots. Because what we have seen, like say in Uganda here, every time you want to take Kampala to the next level,
The elites.
the elites will not want anything to do with the vendor on the streets. So a nation's growth and a nation's strength is largely measured by how well you can take care for your least people. So my prayer is that as we integrate economically, as we go to the next level as a region, may we not forget that the people on the grassroots, the woman whose business is maybe less than $2,000 million, is not really compressed to the wall in this entire thing. But also one other hanging fruit that is there for us is that we can also make this a tourist destination as a region, that beyond everything else, you can still have more money coming in on the ticket of tourism. And I see this getting bigger if we are together as a bloc.
Well, that's interesting.
For my sake, I would, if they provide the security to each and every person, there's discrimination security. Some people are well assured of security. So if provide security that will be
in the trade,
that would cater for each and everyone, that even omuntu wawansi, if I go to this place, I'm sure I'll be safe. I'll come back.
If
safe.
I'm trading cross-border, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then even information. We have a lot of social media platforms. Of course, people won't read, but at least
usable.
At least if we have different languages. We have people who interpret languages. So still, we can give out the information to the people for them to access.
Do you know what, Tricia? One thing, actually publicizing all this information about the East African community is part of the plan that the East African community has for the next 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And many people have been saying East African MPs are just there. They're in the best position to eat everyone's money. No one is holding you accountable. No one is following up on what you're doing because obviously no one knows what you're meant to be doing. So maybe as citizens, this is our time to start putting, to hold our MPs accountable. That yes, you're representing Uganda in the IALA, but what is it? What is in there for us? Because what many people have been saying, people go to IALA, but most of those discussions are not bringing anything
come out
good for
with
Uganda.
nothing.
Exactly.
Their reports don't have any deliverables.
They don't have anything.
And
quite interesting. I know the East African Court of Justice judges are here in Kampala this week. Yes, and they're benchmarking around people using the court, the East African court, to actually take their cases there. Yes, and they're like, we are not here to campaign. Yes, and they're like, we are not here to campaign that you bring your cases, but it would be ideal to use that court because we are there. And currently they are just meeting on ad hoc, like as and when. So they were saying, one, the media needs to help us, to help people know this court is there. We are there. We help with backload within the region. So if you feel your case has taken long, even trade cases, you take it to the East African Court of Justice. That's very interesting. Today I learned two things. The women industrial revolution that I want to be part of. And then correct me because then I don't remember the word well, the free trade regime. Is that the simple free trade regime where you can get your $2,000 goods and have them be traded across the borders without paying taxes. That's quite monumental, especially for women with small businesses and small industries. People that have little money that can leverage this space. I want you to use that to grow your industry. For people in downtown, if you have those clothes within there that are within Uganda, like Itengi, and you can have them go across the region, please do. Thank you for joining us. We'll continue to talk East African community for a while. We'll continue to talk women in trade and also trade for women for a while. But for now, let's stop it there. I've been your host, Tricia, Gloria, Nabaye. Bye for now.